One of the stalwarts, one of the just big names across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network for many, many years is the one, the only Teresa Tomeo. And we get her first. And we are very, very proud of that fact. Every Tuesday morning, we get a little shot of vitamin T with Teresa Tomeo. Good morning, Teresa.
Hey, Teresa.
I am loving the music. Every time I hear the music, I'm so excited. Because in a few hours, Deacon Dom and I will be on a plane and heading over to the motherland to go back, which we were planning to do. As you know, we go back there several months a year, but now it's taking on a whole new dimension because of the passing of the Holy Father, and then the conclave begins now on May 7th, and I will be, God willing, broadcasting from the EWTN studios beginning on Monday, May 7th.
Praise God.
Nice. Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And that'll be great to have time with you there, but I want to talk to you from your special seating regarding what's been happening the last week and a half. You are inundated, of course, with media requests from the secular media. I wanted to first kind of get your thoughts, ideas, how that's being handled. Do you see any differences from past times regarding how the media is handling the death of Pope Francis?
That's a great question, Dave. Yeah, I do actually. I think they're much more open to more matters of faith as opposed to just talking about the structure of the church. Okay, what happens next? What does a conclave mean? How many cardinals can vote? You know, the basic who, what, where, when, why, and how. They're asking me a lot of questions about what are my listeners saying? How are you feeling as a Catholic? What does it mean to you? Those kinds of questions I've never been asked before. And, of course, we had John Paul II and Benedict XVI, so there have been other Catholic Church leaders, big hitters that have passed away that I've covered, and I've been interviewed by the secular media many times. So there's a different tone. And I do think that they're slowly awakening to the fact that this is still a country of faith. If you look at the, not to get political, but the election results, wherever people stand politically, many people still believe in God. So that's what I'm sensing. It's been a real comfort to me to be able, not that I would hold back anyway, but I just felt that they were very accepting of that and gave me an opportunity to share a little bit more of my own thoughts and my own feelings. And so I was really pleased. I was doing a ton of secular media interviews in Detroit, my old stomping grounds, Channel 7. I was on WWJ, the news radio CBS affiliate, the big station, news talk station, and then, of course, WJR as well. But it was funny when I was on WWJ, the anchor person, Greg Bowman, and I worked together almost 35 years ago. We were newscasters together at a local radio station, and he gets on while the commercials are playing. He goes, do you believe it's been almost 40 years? We've been working in this crazy business. So it was kind of fun because some of the people with whom I'm speaking are actually people that I used to work with. But, yeah, I was telling Dave over the weekend, Dave, I was on Newsmax 3 times. I was on Fox News last week, Newsmax last week. I've got some more interest, and a couple of different cable news outlets that feed other cable stations have me scheduled for next week. So it's going to be a whirlwind. I think my husband barely saw me this week, and Monday when the Pope died, I don't think I got off the radio until like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which is not a bad thing because I'm glad they're talking to Catholics who at least understand the faith, right?
Amen to that. And us talking just in our private conversation, you brought up some interesting facts about the tomb that Pope Francis' tomb that I wasn't aware of.
This is really interesting. Now, Pope Francis, even though he was born in Argentina, is 100% Italian. His parents are from northern Italy. His mother is from Liguria. His father was Piemonte. And near that area is an area called Carrara. You remember all the Carrara marble? You hear about it in the fancy homes and different structures around the world. It's a very, very wonderful place to get marble and to build things. And actually, that's where Michelangelo actually went and got some of the marble for some of his sculptures, including the David. So it's a very prominent area in Italy. And a little bit north of that, where Pope Francis's family is from, there's some other rock quarries. And he wanted some marble from his area, his region of Italy, in the tomb. And so there is a portion of that type of marble in his tomb in Santa Maria Maggiore. And I was talking to my friends who are actually in Rome, and they were trying to get into Santa Maria Maggiore yesterday to pay respects to the tomb and pray at his tomb. You couldn't even get into the church. The line was wrapped around the church. So it's very, very crowded there right now, and people are going to pay their respects to Pope Francis. But if you're going to do that and you're heading to Rome, you're going to have to wait a little while.
Yeah, and we were talking the other day, and it's like they're not dispersing. You would think that the crowds would start going away at this point, but not so.
Right, and I think part of it is because this is a Jubilee year, so you're always going to have more people. And Italy is still tops in tourism, and they were expecting increased crowds, millions more this year in Rome alone. So you've got that going on. Right now, we're almost in May. This time of year in the Easter season is very, very busy. You start to get into the high season, so you've got all that going on. Then you have a pope who was very popular, well-known in the secular world as well. So all that is combining for a very, very busy time. So if you are going, pack some extra patience and, bring your rosaries. You can pray while you're standing on line. But it still will be a really, I think, very beautiful experience. Now, St. Peter's is open again, but the Sistine Chapel is closed until after the conclave. And with the conclave starting on May 7th, usually it lasts for several days. If you're going over to Italy, my advice would be if you can swing it to maybe stay a little longer until after the conclave, so you can still, if you've never been to Rome, you can't leave without seeing the Sistine Chapel, but you won't be able to see it now until after the conclave.
Teresa, are there any other restrictions as far as where people can go during the conclave besides the Sistine Chapel?
No, that's really, in terms of tours, no, that's really it. They will have a certain security set up outside St. Mary Major. They've always had it, but it's a little bit more intense because of the crowds. And sometimes they change where the entrances are. The good news for Catholics who want to go in and pray, a few years ago, I think it was about 2 years ago, they established special lines to go into St. Peter's, to go directly to the different places, for example, for Eucharistic adoration or if there's a Mass going on. So you can go in and skip some of the lines if you are going in for prayer. But again, it's going to be very long, a very long wait. And right now, the biggest thing that's off, it's off the tour list is going to be the Sistine Chapel. And I would think probably closer to some of the Vatican museums, which are still open right now. But next to the Sistine Chapel, you have to go through a special room, and then there's the Gallery of Maps. There's a couple of other areas right there as you're making your way into the Sistine Chapel that are closed.
So is like Vatican Gardens tours, those kinds of things, would those kind of things around the Vatican still be happening? Do you know? That's
my understanding, is that the church, St. Peter's, is open again, and the Vatican Gardens are right behind St. Peter's. Right. So I don't see that conflicting with the Sistine Chapel. Because normally when you go into the Sistine Chapel, you have to go on the other side. If you're looking at St. Peter's, you have to go all the way around. There's a wall, obviously. And the entrance to the museums is to the right of St. Peter's, all the way around the block, this very long wall. And so you go in there through security that gets you into the different museums, which head you into the Sistine Chapel. So that's going to be very restricted. But St. Peter's, when you go in through St. Peter's Square. There's usually security in the colonnade on the right-hand side. You see all the metal detectors. And then you queue up there, and you go in on a side entrance. Things could be changing depending on the crowds, but, again, for the other entrance to the Sistine Chapel, it's all the way around the other side into the Vatican museums. But St. Peter's would be separate from that.
I know they were putting up screens for the actual papal funeral, like out in the piazza. Is there going to be the screens out there during the conclave, or no?
No. The conclave is completely shut off from the world, to the point where Joan Lewis told me, who lives right across from Paul VI Hall. And again, if you're looking at the Vatican, you've got St. Peter's, and right next to St. Peter's, if you go to the left side, it's going to be St. Paul VI Hall, and then there's the other part of the wall that covers it. Then there's a long street that runs alongside the Vatican and Paul VI Hall. Joan Lewis lives in Vatican Apartments right there. And the last conclave they had when they were electing Pope Francis, because they actually blocked all the internet, shut everything down, that whole apartment complex, all the businesses along that street lost internet for several days. So they're trying to come up. Yeah, I'm serious. Trying to come up with a better system. But everything is shut down. They go through the suitcases of the cardinals. They even, when they go back to the Santa Marta, the Casa Santa Marta, which is tucked behind St. Peter's Square, or St. Peter's, they even make them keep their drapes drawn and their shades down. They can't have any communication with anyone during that time.
Wow. Love it. For more information, TeresaTomeo.com. Tease Italy. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's an agreement between Italy and Teresa Tomeo. It belongs to her.
That's right,
Tease Italy. TeresaTomeo.com. Thank you, Teresa.
Ciao.